you for sure need 2 days.
That sucks. How long should your Disney vacation be? Let's find out.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land. Here age relive fond memories of the past. And here youth may savor the challenge and promise of the future.
Hey guys, we're Maple Mickey, and today we want to explore the best amount of time it's going to take to do a Disney vacation. Whether you go to Disneyland or Disney World, what are some considerations? What are some questions that help create a framework for making best decisions so you're not spending too much time at the parks, but you also don't have the regret of spending too little time and missing out on so much?
So let me just say that there's no way to do it all. You know, rides are going to be down or you're going to miss that showtime. And so you do kind of have to walk into your Disney vacation knowing that it's impossible to do it all. And so take a deep exhale. So while we're talking about how much time, the reality is you probably aren't going to have enough time, and that's okay. So crowd levels. Now you need to factor in your crowd level solely because you need to know how much time you're going to be waiting in line. That's going to dramatically change the amount of days that you need to be able to do each park. In a previous episode, we had talked about watching the crowd calendars, and that's going to give you a really good indication of what your crowd level is going to be. So you can look historically, right, and see years past to give you a good idea.
And we'll put some links in the description below for some resources that help with that crowd stuff, undercover tourist and things like that. Not sponsored, by the way, but very helpful.
And here's why it matters. If you go to Disney World, you are going to need 6 hours at Magic Kingdom to only ride the rides, watch the shows, the fireworks, and the parade. And that is not including waiting in line. That is legitimately just your butt is in the seat. You are going to need 5.5 hours at Animal Kingdom. Now that is gonna like flex a little bit based on how much time you like to spend looking at animals.
Animal Kingdom is, you know, they say it's a half park day. That's kind of a thing out there, but
It is not true.
Yeah, we'd like to debunk that myth a little bit. That is a full park day, especially if you want to take it all in and you want to, you know, ride Everest like 5 times.
Yes, in fact, we often plan 2 days at Animal Kingdom when we go to Disney World. Now, Epcot is another park, 5 hours just to do the rides and watch the shows. And there are a lot of shows around World Showcase, but World Showcase is also very large. It's a 1-mile loop around a lake, and so you do need to factor in just walking time on top of that 5 hours.
Now, I will say when it comes to Epcot, and we might talk about this, you know, in the future.
Oh, we will.
If you have little kids, I would say that maybe that could be a half-day park.
It could.
For families with little kids, because the pavilions and all those kind of moments aren't going to be as exciting and spectacular, holding their imagination and attention.
But let me say, if you do have little kids, Epcot is the park that like might surprise you. It has the most play areas for kids of all of the parks in the US. And then last at Disney World is Hollywood Studios, which is 4.5 hours just to ride the rides and watch the shows. And Hollywood Studios arguably has the longest lines for their big rides because they do have big rides.
They have fewer big attractions in that way, and so the lines tend to be a little bit longer. It is a smaller park as well. Like you'll go to Hollywood Studios and after a little while you'll be like, oh, this is like comparatively kind of small compared to the other parks, but there's still so much to do. It is easily a full day park in terms of giving it some priority and time.
Yeah, so if you start to think like, okay, 6 hours in Magic Kingdom just to ride the rides and watch the shows. If you wait 15 minutes for every ride, you are adding on a few hours just to stand in line. If you take 30 minutes at every meal, That's another hour. You've already, just adding lines in, bumped it to a 2-day.
And if you're doing 15-minute lines and 30-minute lunches, please contact us. Tell us how you're doing that, because that's amazing.
It is amazing. And we're gonna get into some tips and tricks in a future video about strategies to make sure that you get reduced line time and what to do when you are waiting in those long lines.
Okay, so let's fly across the country.
Sure.
To the West Coast.
Land.
Because a very different kind of experience.
It is.
So what are we talking in terms of Disneyland, Anaheim?
So for Disneyland, I mentioned in a previous video that there is a pretty equitable amount of rides and attractions in Disneyland comparative to Disney World. So to do Disneyland Park itself, again, no lines, just rides and shows, fireworks and parades. It's 8.5 hours for Disneyland Park. You need a full day to not even wait in a line.
So are we talking, we're double dipping Disneyland Park?
If you want to do everything,
shows, attractions.
Yes, like you want to ride Casey Junior Circus Train, you want to ride Dumbo, you want to do all the big and all the small, and then California Adventure, you need 4 hours just to do the rides and the shows. And so again, you need to really look at what your line times are going to be based on those crowd calendars, based on the projections of when you're going, to know how many days you're really going to need and how many hours you're going to need to add to those base numbers in order to get the most bang out of your buck. And so I would suggest, regardless of what time of year you go, you're going to want 2 days for Magic Kingdom and 2 days for Disneyland, and you could probably get by with 1 day for all of the rest of the parks at a minimum.
So part of factoring this in now is just your party, you know, right? Are you traveling just adults? Are you traveling with young kids where you're changing diapers or your potty breaks nonstop, or you're traveling with a multi-generational? So really, in some ways, the composition of your party is going to determine some of the speed at which you can get around the parks.
Yeah. Last time we went, we were on a multi-generational trip. We had 11 people, ranging from 2 to my parents. And fun fact, my dad actually blew his Achilles heel a month before our trip. So he was in a wheelchair the entire time. The speed of our party was very different than all of the trips we had done in the past. We needed a lot more time to just let kids blow off some steam so they weren't sitting in lines the whole day. We needed a few more extra snack breaks. And that is something that you do need to take into account.
Yeah.
Now, when we went, just the 2 of us, we also went at a much slower pace around the parks. We wanted to stop and have a coffee and not rush through drinking it. We wanted those chances to stop and smell the roses. And if you want those, you can get them by choosing to not do some things, or you can just add extra time to your vacation.
Let's talk about probably one of your favorite subjects, because this is, if you're strategic with this next piece, you will put so much magic back into your vacation. And that's something that we're calling trip savers. What do you just tell the good people what you mean by trip savers?
Have you ever walked through Disneyland and looked at those people that are miserable and thought, why are you here at the happiest place on earth when you're not happy? The reason they are probably miserable is that they have tried to do too much for too long. They have tried to go from the rope drop, park open to park close, for all 5 days of their ticket in succession. That is going to destroy your magic. Please, if you hear nothing else that we say ever again, build in trip saver days to your vacation.
So what do you mean by a trip saver?
Yes, you want days that you just allow your body to recuperate from walking 30,000 steps around the park. You want a day that you can sleep in. You want a day that you can just lounge by the pool or do something that's fun and refreshing for you that does not involve the parks. I promise you, I promise you that if you do that, you are going to be like up and ready for the magic the next day. You're gonna have the stamina that you need to enjoy it. So our personal like kind of rhythm is we do 2 park days and then we do a down day. We do a trip saver day where we do just that. We sleep in, we go to downtown Disney or Disney Springs, and we just hang out by the pool for that day. And it is a game changer.
And depending on whether or not you're in a Disney resort during those down days, there's so much to do there too. So it's not like you're pulled right out of the Disney magic, but it does save your trip, certainly.
It does.
Let's talk factoring in other fun. How do we kind of create some memories, experiences for our party, our family, those that we're hanging out with?
Now, we had talked about this when we were kind of talking about the framework of where do you decide to go. Disney is not the only tourist destination where you are going. Do you want to do those things on your trip? If you do, you need to add in extra days to be able to experience that magic. And so again, at Disneyland, you can easily do 3 days, Disneyland for 2, Disney California for 1, and then add in a 4th day at Universal Studios Hollywood and have a really nice week-long vacation. But if you want to do some of that other fun, factor that into your trip planning.
Now we understand this is all just money, right? It's all just money.
No biggie.
We feel the hurt and the pain of spending big money on a vacation as well. And so let's talk a little bit about expectations around what are you gonna spend in terms of the parks and all of that.
Now, there is something called Disney math, and that is that the more days you spend at Disney, the less expensive each day costs. And I know that you still are going to spend more money overall once you add in your food and your hotel, but it can just kind of help with the price tag when you go, oh, instead of $200 for this day, it's $80. There is just something magical about Disney math. We don't need to understand it. There's pixie dust all over it. So there are the ticket prices that you need to factor in. And so for a 1-day Disneyland park hopper, so again, that's that ticket where you can go back and forth between Disneyland and California Adventure as many times as you want.
And this is, as of the time of this recording, 2023 season.
Yes. For the value cost of that park hopper ticket, it's gonna be $169 for 2024. It will go up to $259 for a 1-day ticket at peak season. But if you get a 5-day park hopper, it's $555 per adult, regardless of the time of year you go. So if you break that down per day, it's $111 per day, which is cheaper. So let me break it down for you for Disney World, because you can see how dramatic it gets the longer you're there. So at Disney World, a 1-day park hopper ticket, and we're gonna get into this on what ticket you need. You don't need a park hopper ticket at Disney World. For a 1-day park hopper ticket at Disney World, $218 in value season, $252 per adult in peak season. But if you go to a 5-day park hopper, that drops to $155 per day. Again, that's cheaper than your value ticket for a 1-day. If you do 8 days in the park, which is typically what we like to do when we go to Disney World, because we're going so far, we have the jet lag we need to get over, and we just like to have longer vacations because it allows us to rest. So if it's an 8-day ticket, it's $108 per day, which is less than half of what your 1-day park hopper ticket would cost you per day. And then if you go up to 10 days in that park, it's $89 per day for your ticket. That is, I mean, that's Disney math right there. And so, like, the longer you stay, the cheaper your attraction cost is going to be. And that is, again, if you're thinking back to factoring other fun, that is something to think of, is do I want to go off-site and pay more per day for my Disney tickets, plus more per day for my Universal or whatever it is tickets? Or do I just want to add on those extra days at Disney and see that cost per day come down because my ticket is now longer?
Now, we've tried to be very thoughtful about giving you the tools and the framework to make best decisions when it comes to your Disney vacation, but not to be prescriptive.
Yeah.
But if you are gonna plan a Disneyland, California Adventure vacation, how many days are you factoring in for that?
For where we are now, this stage of life with teenagers, probably a 3-day park hopper. When we had littles, we would do a 5-day park hopper. It let us like do naps, it let us do all the things without feeling guilty that we were taking that time away from the parks.
And Disney World.
I am a big fan of that 8-day, 1 park per day ticket. I like us to spend 3 days in Magic Kingdom. It is just the densest in terms of rides. And then personally, I would do 2 days in Epcot, 2 days in Animal Kingdom, and 1 day in Hollywood Studios. But that's because it's my least favorite of the 4 parks.
Well, guys, we hope that this has helped you kind of parse out some of the decision making for your next Disney vacation, and that you don't have any regrets when you go and you realize you nailed it right on the head and you picked the perfect amount of time with some trip savers built in, and the magic was just alive and well in your next vacation. So thank you so much for joining us. As always, like, subscribe, hit the bell. We're Maple Mickey, putting the magic back into your Disney vacation.